Some thinking faults are systematic deviations of rational, appropriate, logical, rational thought and behavior. The situations where we are wrong are usually the same. Therefore, it is important to be systematic. For example, it is much more common to overestimate something than to shrink it down, or when we think we are going to lose something, it can get us moving quickly, but when we win something, we do not act as quickly as we think we will lose. This experience situation is called the asymmetric distribution of our thought errors. On the bright side, asymmetry can sometimes make these mistakes predictable. This book aims to benefit you in your private and business life. Knowing the faults in your thoughts will make you feel more comfortable and equipped. You are going to notice your faults once it becomes too late, and avoid dangers. After reading this book, you will minimize the big faults that you caused on your own. Social proof: 50 million people insisting that something stupid is true does not make it true. Social proof is sometimes known as herd psychology. Acting like the majority is defended to be right. When a group of people looks at the sky, you do the same. When a group of people starts clapping in the middle of a concert, you do the same. These are all proof of social proof. Even it is not clear that they are right or wrong, you accept it and start acting. There is an opinion that the more people agree with an idea, the more true it is. Of course, this is meaningless. Let's give an example of the Solomon Asch experiment. At first, a group of people saw lines with different heights, and they compared if these lines are short, long, or equal to the determined line. They give the right answers when alone, and then 7 people join the game, but the subject isn't aware of it. All the gamers give wrong answers to the questions. It's time for the subject. In the experiment, 30% of the subjects suit these players and give the wrong answers to obvious questions. This shows how much social pressure has on people and how much it distorts common sense. Our brain thinks this attitude is a good strategy to survive and acts like this. You would like to go to a football match in a city that you previously moved in, but you cannot find the stadium. You see a group of people with jerseys. It is better to follow them. There are situations where social proof is beneficial, just like in this example. Let's make an experiment of thoughts. You are asked to evaluate the success of 3 heart surgeons. Every surgeon does 5 surgeries, and you evaluate them one by one. The first surgeon's operation does not end up with death. A person dies during the second surgeon's operation. 2 people die during the third surgeon's operation. According to the evaluation of most people, the best surgeon is the first and the worst one is the third surgeon. This result is a bias trap. To be able to decide among surgeons, you must know this area and job. It is necessary to examine the preparations for the surgeries. The right thing is to consider the process, not the result. Never test a decision because of its result. A good result does not mean the decision is good, or a bad result does not mean the decision is bad. The important thing is to observe the path and decide on it. There is a margin of error in the decisions made for the result, but when you consider the course, it is possible to choose a much more right path. When we guess something, we usually use anchors. We grab onto something new and try to guess from there what we don't know. Otherwise, it is difficult to guess. Making random guesses can lead to illogical answers. Let's look at an experiment. Psychologist Amos Tversky constructed a wheel of fortune and asked the participants to roll it. He asked the participants the number of countries involved in the United Nations. The high number of people in the Wheel of Fortune gave high answers to this question. Those who came low gave low answers to this question. Let's give another example of an experiment. Researchers Russo and Shoemaker asked a group of university students, when did Attila, the Hun emperor, suffered a great defeat in Europe? Here, the last 2 numbers of the participants' phone numbers were anchored. As a result, as in the previous examples, higher phone numbers said a higher number, while lower ones said lower numbers. There are lots of anchors, and we hold them. They affect our lives and decisions. It is proved scientifically that while teachers are reading the exam papers of students, they get affected by their previous notes. Here, previous notes are the anchors. Also advised selling price notes on the products are anchors too. Sales professionals often use these anchors to affect customers. ALA effect can be described as, we let a property overshadow our eyes, and then we create a holistic result from it. The ALA effect always proceeds in the same way. It is easy to get. and we draw excellent results from flashy facts. Thus, objectivity is lost. The Ayla effect is discovered almost 100 years ago by a psychologist, Edward Lee Thorndike. The only property of a person, such as beauty, age, social status, can be enough to overshadow everything else. Beauty is the most common example. There are various researches that beautiful persons are perceived as more attractive, intelligent, and honest. There is clear proof that attractive people can make a career more easily. Another impact like this exists in the school period. Teachers usually give higher grades to smart-looking students. The advertising sector also uses the Ayla effect. It exists many attractive and famous people on billboards. The Ayla effect really overshadows our eyes over reality. As a result, look carefully and clear the blur. Leave out the highlights. World-class orchestras have candidates play behind a curtain so they can make an objective decision without being influenced by gender, beauty, or age. The things that come to light are sometimes not pleasant, but there is always the possibility that they are educational. All people have a general idea about the validity of something according to a single observation. This is a dangerous situation. Let's merge with an example now. An investor buys stock. Stock market prices are also rising rapidly. Although the investor is skeptical at first, this increase continues after months. He is investing all of his assets in stocks, confident that he will no longer fall. His risk intensified, and he fell victim to induction. Eventually, it will face benefits. With induction, you can deceive people, even yourself. For example, people who rarely get ill consider themselves immortal. A CEO who has predicted profit growth for a long time, including his colleagues, thinks he is infallible. The adventurer who has made more than 1,000 jumps may die when things go wrong, saying nothing happened in any jump. That all of his jumps are fine does not mean that the next ones will be okay. It does not contain exact judgments. A single counter-observation is enough to erase what has been done so many times. As Walter Benjamin said, nothing is certain except death and taxes. Induction has an attractive side. There is a common thought, as humanity has always succeeded, and they will overcome all difficulties and achieve everything, but it can only be said by a living thing that has survived until now so far. We have to consider this. Existing does not mean we're going to exist. This is the most common mistake in thinking. What brings our happiness level higher? Summer vacation or spending time with family? Think about it and find the one which brings happiness to you, and what brings sadness over you. Disability, natural disasters, cancer, depression, war, hunger. As you distinguish, a lowering intention is more than a rising intention. There is more badness than goodness. It is not surprising that losing is tested higher than gains. Losing money is more impressive than earning. This is an experimentally proven judgment. Its scientific name is loss avoidance. A loss is twice the emotional weight of a gain of the same size. Afraid of losing is more motivational than winning and makes people act easily. Let's explain it with an example. Imagine you are someone who creates insulation for buildings and does this as a job. They will be much more willing to insulate their homes if you tell your customers the amount they will lose with bad insulation, rather than the amount they can save with good insulation. Even if these two amounts are equal, the situation is observed in this way. We cannot change the situation on our own. Bad is stronger and impressive than good. We react less to the positive when compared to the negative. When we walk on the street, a beast face attracts our attention more than a nice face. We remember bad attitudes more than good ones, accept the kindnesses we do. The delusion of negligence occurs when something is neglected and action causes damage. Imagine there are two climbers and one falls into the ice cleft. When you can call for help and save him, you don't and he dies. You deliberately push the second climber into the ice rift and he dies. Which of these actions is harsher to you? The result of the two actions is the same. But it feels more innocent not to help than to push deliberately. This is called the delusion of negligence. In these cases, negligence is often chosen. The result is less dangerous when compared to the other. Although the negligence explains that vaccines reduce the risk of disease, it also explains why some parents do not want their children to be vaccinated. Objectively, these parents should have been arrested for harming their children. But we still perceive deliberate neglect as less harmful than actual harm. A delusion of negligence does not give any harm directly, but explains preventing the damage. For example, if a company will fail in all the cases, the investors will perceive developing a wrong product rather than not developing in a bad way. Or not declaring our income sounds less bad than cheating tax documents. However, the result is the same. A delusion of negligence is difficult to be noticed. Omitting action is seen less badly and harder to choose than the action itself. The 68's movement solved the essence of the delusion of negligence and found a meaningful slogan against it. If you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. Social vagabonding occurs when individuals' performances are invisible in groups. In reality, this is an intelligent attitude. Why do we put all our effort when we can do it with the half? This happens mostly unconsciously, as a game of our brain. The more people pulling the rope, the more individual performance rises down. Social vagabonding not only occurs in physical situations, but it can also occur mentally, and the biggest example of this is the meetings. The larger the team, the less personal participation there will be. Social vagabonding has interesting effects. For example, we decrease not only our performance in groups, but also our responsibilities. No one wants to be in charge of bad results. So, for this reason, groups get into risks more than individuals. Individuals think, if things go wrong, I am not responsible. Romans said, rare is precious. The delusion of scarcity stretches back to the beginning of human history. For example, it is called our stocks are limited in advertisements. We see posters saying the last day of the discount everywhere. These indicate time limitations. To test the quality of the biscuits, Professor Stephen Werkel divided the group into two. He gave a whole pack of biscuits to the first group. He gave only 2 biscuits to the second group. As a result, 2 biscuits given group think the biscuits taste better, while the first group ranks the taste of the biscuits lower. When faced with a situation of scarcity, our typical reaction is often the loss of rational thinking. Therefore, test something only with its benefits. Whether something is rare or shouldn't play a role. Thinking spontaneously makes errors. It is the same for all people. Even geniuses constantly fall into thinking errors, and these errors are not too different from each other. Thinking errors progress systematically. On the bright side, we can expect and predict our mistakes. This allows us to avoid mistakes, so we don't fall into the same mistakes repeatedly. While every part of our body and all of our organs are functioning perfectly, why does our brain keeps making mistakes and getting wrong? Because our brains are optimized for hunting-collecting periods, but our lives are way much complicated now. For this reason, our brain is having difficulties following up the race and gets adapted, so it is normal to make mistakes. It is a fact that as complexity increases, thought errors will also increase. Evolutionary psychology comprises theory, but believable for many. Let's look at this example. Each Milka chocolate has a cow on it. So every chocolate with a cow on it is a Milka chocolate. This is a common fault that even intelligent people fall into. People living outside the civilization zone fall into this mistake. We don't have clear information about our ancestors if they did the same mistake. Some mistakes exist in our hardware, and this is irrelevant to the mutation of our environment. So what does it mean evolution does not optimize us? It forgives our mistakes as long as we are better than our competitors than those we compete with.